Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Diane Ackerman.
Thank you so much. Let me check and make sure that you can all hear me well in the back. Okay. I'm really delighted to be here. I've spent so much of my life on campus in one role or another over the last 40 years or so. And one of the things I loved doing was taking CAU courses of different kinds. And one time I taught one with a marvelous entomologist, Thomas Eisner. Has anybody met him? A few people have. He was extraordinary. And he invited me to co-teach a course with him on love, truth, and beauty. He would talk about it from the insect perspectives, and I would talk about it from the human perspective, but of course, it was pretty much the same. So, well, at one point in my life, I was lucky enough to travel the world to work with endangered animals and write about them, mainly for the New Yorker and National Geographic, hoping to bring attention to their plight and help protect them if I could. I collected those essays in 2 books, The Rarest of the Rare and The Moon by Whale Light. And I'm going to read a sample from those books tonight, along with a slideshow. None of the pictures are mine. I'm going to begin with a trip to an extraordinary island, Torishima, a small, remote, uninhabited, active volcano near the end of the Japanese island chain. And I went there with 2 ornithologists, Hiroshi Hasegawa of Toho University, and Peter Harrison. You may know some of his guides to birds. I went there to visit the last few surviving short-tailed albatrosses. These exquisite birds once clouded the skies from Japan to California. In barely 100 years, plume hunters slaughtered almost every single one of them. In a 17-year period alone, 5 million were killed just to stuff mattresses and quilts. When I went to Torishima in the 1990s, there were about 1,300 left, and they had found a hiding place that was virtually inaccessible to humans. After a fishing boat drops us off on the shore of the island, we climb 10 stories of rocky steps to a small abandoned cement bunker from World War II, which becomes our base camp. And the next morning, we set out over a steep meadow of grasses. Below us, large skirts of frozen lava ripple towards the coast where they once enveloped a whole village. Making our steepest climb in the early part of the day, we cut across the mountains and walk up a glacier of crushed lava, and then over ground singed with bright yellow sulfur and hot black scabs. By mid-morning, we reach a field of lava rocks, missiles that have been ejected from the volcano that turned a narrow mountain pass into a wind-blown moonscape of starkest black and white. Moon desert is what they call it. At the end of the pass, the land drops away and the entrance to the cliffs begins. There we see an explosion of tall pinnacles and wind-ripped rock walls spilling down through twisted chasms, and at the very bottom, down an impossible set of interlocking cliffs, a small flock of brown and white birds dot the grass. They look like handkerchiefs someone has dropped onto a lawn. An invisible fist knocks the breath out of me and I sigh out loud. There are so few of them. It is heartbreaking to see the last remaining nesting short-tailed albatrosses on Earth. Over the breeze, we can just make out their whistles and whinnies. The scene throbs with color, the bulging, oxidized orange cliffs, the green grasses below on which the albatrosses nest, the tan rock face the golden ochres, and the black lava. Through binoculars, we see the yellow heads of the birds, so close now, yet still so far, so inaccessible. Above them, a fantasia of albatrosses sails across the sky. Men built a garrison on the other side of the island, but nature built one here that is stronger and much more impenetrable. Because of this natural fortress, based entirely on the bad temper of rock, the birds have survived the onslaught of humans. We all stand silently and behold the fortress for some minutes. It is utterly astonishing that Hiroshi has been studying the birds in such an impossible locale for the past 10 years. That the birds are increasing in number is a great testimony to his efforts and to the support of the Japanese government. Japan has declared these birds a national monument, not just the island. The birds themselves are the monument. It's comforting to think that in a high-speed world where people sometimes content themselves with shallow efforts, naturalists like Hiroshi are at work, devoting their lives to saving just one species. "Let's go," he says at last, and we set off along the east side of the walls. He has marked a large O in white paint on some of the more secure rocks along the way, but it is a steep, slippery climb with sheer 400-foot cliffs. When we come to a particularly awkward plunge of rocks near the edge, Hiroshi attaches a rope to a rock. A strong climber passing the rope behind his waist and holding one end in the right hand, one end in the left, could lean back against the rope and use it to slip and break his way down. But I have never climbed with ropes before. They neglected to tell me that they would be used, and I find it incredibly strenuous. But I do like the feel of the rope as it slides and rasps through my hands. Leaning back, I try to lower myself slowly, but my foot swivels and suddenly I skid towards the cliff edge, clinging to the rope. Loose stones clatter below. Above me, I see Peter and Hiroshi transfixed to the rocks, watching me suspended over this 400-foot chasm, all the emotion smashed out of their faces. There is no point in looking down. Lesson number 1, don't let go of the rope. Hanging on with my left hand, I bring my right hand around, find a handhold, and pull myself back up. Once I find my footing, I continue across a rocky bridge and reluctantly let go of the rope. Peter and Hiroshi have both been rock climbing for many years, and I understand at once how seductive it can be. At each station along the way, it feels hawk-like to perch high with towering freedom, to pause and look out over the valley below and the ocean beyond. But I especially like the puzzle of figuring out which rock will make a handhold, what tablet, pyramid, or silo of earth to cling to, on what slender ledge to place my foot. At times, you are violently gripping the bones of the planet, and at others, tiptoeing down the shallowest stairway. It is a strange, tentative searching with all of your limbs that unites you, as nothing else could, to the core of the planet, to the violence that forged it, to the thrust and fall of the rock frozen forever in the memory of a mountain. Rocks have veins and faces, and there is the texture of rock, in one moment raspy, spiky, and brutal, but in the next gentle, forgiving, and smooth. There are the colors of blood, midnight, and autumn. There is the steep persuasion of gravity, drawing you down the ladder of its rocky spine. Again, I misstep, and holding on to the rope, slide back into a ledge, collect myself, and continue on down to where Hiroshi, seeing that I'm all right, leaps into a hill of deep sandy lava and cascades with it, clear down to the bottom, as if he's skiing. Peter does the same, and I follow. Then we scramble up a small dune and suddenly find ourselves staring straight across a plateau at two bustling colonies of short-tailed albatrosses. Nesting, yawning their wings, romancing, tending their eggs, bickering, they go about their normal ways, only 200 yards from us, just far enough not to be frightened by our presence. Vibrant white with radiant yellow heads and coral pink bills tipped in blue, the adults are insanely beautiful. A subtle wake of shadow runs behind each dark eye. Glossy, elegant, smooth as wax. They stretch their airy wings, and even when they're sitting, they seem to be embracing the wind. The adolescent birds are brown, or have mottled plumages of brown and white, some with striking white epaulets. All wear small, discreet, different colored bands around their legs. These are a present from Hiroshi so that he can identify them. Each color denotes a different year. A white band, for example, was put on the right leg of each of 47 birds hatched in 1986. There are actually 2 colonies of birds separated by a black swirling drape of lava, which is narrow enough for the birds to walk across. Young birds sometimes take a mate in the other village and settle there. Depending on the wind, a bird may land in the lower village and climb up to the higher one. The older birds with whiter plumage choose to nest in the center of the colonies where it's safer, and the younger, darker plumaged birds are on the outside. Some are sitting on eggs. Occasionally a bird will stand, rearrange its feather petticoats so that the egg nestles tightly against the warm brood patch, and then with a twitch or two settle down deep into its soft haunches again. 2 eggs lie outside of nests, which means that the chicks within will have died. In a species as rare as this, every newborn counts, so this is a tragic sight. A particularly lovely female, with a bill the sultry coral of a Bahamian sunset, opens up her downy wings and preens them gently. Every single feather has a nerve ending she can use. I try to imagine what it would be like if I could put my arm out and twitch every hair separately. A male approaches her, and suddenly she spreads out the white skirts of her wings and curtsies to him. He curtsies back. Then he reaches his bill forward and brushes up a few of the feathers on her breast. This drives her wild. She slides her bill down along the side of his and starts delicately kissing the small feathers at the base of it. He does the same. Then they pull back a few inches and start a crescendo of clacking that sounds like a spoon hitting hollow wood. It's called castanets. They roll their heads together from side to side as if they're packing an imaginary snowball. Then he rocks forward onto his toes, aching towards her, presses his chest out like a sailboat in a strong blow, and she does the same. Suddenly, they toss their heads skyward, stretch their necks long in mutual yearning, quiver and flap and trumpet to high heaven. Their wild, otherworldly music drifts across the grass, half whinny, half moo, like the surrealistic lowing of cattle. Next, they do a Groucho walk around one another, a low-down strut with their shoulders hunched. And then they face one another and start to curtsy all over again. While this erotic minuet continues, dozens of black-footed albatrosses, a darker and less extravagant species nesting nearby, engage in more modest courtship dances of their own, in which they sound like speeding cars screeching around tight curves. Just then, a white short-tailed albatross sails in off the ocean, flies a wide spiral around the colonies, banks and tilts with fluid grace, and begins what's called reefing. Arching its chest, it pulls its huge sail-like wings in halfway, lets its big feet hang down like a plane's undercarriage, ruffles up its tail feathers as a sort of air brake, and tries to slow down enough to land, which is not easy for a bird of that size. Round and round it flies, soaring and reefing, swooping low and funneling high, with an eloquence that leaves us gaping, not quite sure on which pass it will lose flying speed and be able to touch down at last. The sunlight shines through its yellow feet, as if through the paper panes on a sliding door in a Japanese house. Kirei, I say, is more of an exhalation than a word. It is the Japanese for beautiful, and I mean all of it. The heat mirage like a transparent drape of shot silk between us and the colonies, the nesting birds sitting perfect as alabaster statues, the ceremonial square dance of the courting pairs, the incoming bird whirling low and then climbing into steep registers of sky where it half swoons like the high notes of a saxophone solo. At day's end, exhausted, we climb up the cliffs and trek back to the bunker. The following morning, as we climb across the pungent fields again, I feel the warmth of the island's molten heart through my boots. Steam like a dragon's breath rises all around us. In the moon desert where the lava sand blows, each footstep leaves a cloud, as if one's life force were burning right through the soles of one's feet. Yesterday, we left pouches of water at this spout, and I fall to my knees and hold one of them overhead, pour a long gush down my throat, and wash the black dust deeper inside me. Then we continue on through the narrow pass. Soon we are at the edge of the fortress and begin climbing down. Achy and more tentative today, I find the first rope easy enough. At the second, searching around for good footholds, I slide down a rock with one foot, carry the second foot around, slide down to another ledge. The next toehold waits below. Stretching, I give the rope a little slack, stretch farther, lower myself, feel towards the spot, then bang, the floor shoots away underneath me. And spinning around, I fall backward, my left hand gripping the rope as I smash against sharp rock. Pain butts deep into my back. Below me, Hiroshi has already climbed out of sight. Peter, vigilant nearby, looks ready to spring. I'm hurt. I call out as a moan. He rushes to me where in mid-cliff I'm wedged in a colander of rocks and says, "Breathe deeply. Try to get some air in." "I think I've cracked a rib," I whisper. Looking down at the cliff below, then up at the cliff above, I wonder, how will I get out of here? Perched just below me, Peter checks the best route down. Although I know it's going to be painful, I must somehow turn around and hold onto the rope tightly with my left hand, so I turn painfully and grab. Peter calls out footholds. "Stretch your right foot down to where my feet are," he says. I do. "Now move your left foot below you to an open space beside those two narrow rocks." He steps down 6 inches. "Right foot just above where my right foot is." And so we climb down to where the rock face quits and the lava hill begins. There, struggling to keep my torso straight, I put my hands on his backpack and follow him slowly down to the bottom of the dune. Hiroshi runs forward, anxious and sympathetic. The two men try to pinpoint the pain, bleeding low on my left side, which has made it impossible to bend at the waist, nor cough, speak loudly, sneeze, or laugh. Guiding me up onto the crest of the lava dune, which is our lookout point, they dig a pit, brace it with knapsacks, and settle me into the hole. Later, I will learn that I have broken 3 ribs, solid breaks with the rib spars lying horizontal to one another. But when I watch the albatrosses coast overhead, holding the sky upon their wings, filled with the restless ongoing of their flight, I would not trade my lot for anyone's. Life is too full of easy entrances and exits. The birds need their garrison, which is all that has saved them. I don't welcome this pain, gnawing like a wolf pack, but if that is the toll that must be paid, then it is well spent. Taking a breath, I laugh quietly to myself. Well, no wonder they've survived here. I'm proof that their fortress works. At twilight, when like monks we finish our silent beholding, which is like a form of prayer, we gather up our knapsacks and consider the ascent. Hampered by a tight straitjacket of pain, I can't move the whole left side of my body, and yet somehow must climb back up the cliffs. Hiroshi loops a guide rope high around my shoulders, and Peter lifts me bodily, haunch by haunch. We are a good team, calm and in distress. Working together, the three of us finally emerge from the fortress and climb wearily back down toward camp. A great day despite everything, I tell them, and I do mean it. Who would drink from a cup when they can drink from the source? After that, back in camp, things became much more dangerous. And if you like, I will tell you what happened and how I came to be saved, thanks to the kindness of strangers and chance during the Q&A. But what I'd like to do now is invite you to join me on another memorable trip. This one was to the Cornell whale study site. Has anybody been to that whale camp? No, but it's in Patagonia, and it's absolutely amazing. I went there with the renowned biologist Roger Payne, a pioneer in whale research. Payne's groundbreaking work helped to galvanize global efforts to protect these majestic creatures. He did his graduate work at Cornell in bioacoustics, and along with his wife, Katie Payne, discovered that humpback whales sing complex songs and even use rhyme to remember their longer songs. Southern right whales, once decimated by whaling, are slowly recovering, but they do remain endangered. There are looming cliffs above whale camp, which offer an excellent view of the bay, the ocean, and mother and baby whales near shore. For hours, I sat quietly and just watched the busy nursery bay. When a whale sleeps, it slowly tumbles in any old crazy end-over-end sideways fashion, and it may even bonk its head on the bottom, or it just lies quietly looking like a corpse. Then it rises again to breathe in the midst of its sleep. It comes up as slow as a dream, breaks the surface, breathes a few times, and without even diving, just falls again slowly to the bottom. Right whales sometimes sleep in the mornings on calm days in Argentina, and they're very easy to study because they're at the surface whales. That's how they got their name. They were the right whales to hunt. When they sleep at the surface, their breathing rate drops tremendously. They don't close their nostrils completely between breaths, and so sometimes they snore. In fact, they make marvelous, rude after-dinner noises as they sleep. When they wake, they stretch their backs, open their mouths, and they yawn. Often they sleep at the surface so long on calm days that their backs get sunburned, and then they peel the same way that we do, but on a big whale-sized scale. The loose skin from their backs falls into the water and becomes food for the birds. Sometimes the birds don't wait for the skin to fall. They see it's peeling and sweep down and pull some from the whales' backs. Juan, one of the researchers, appeared at the edge of camp on foot, apparently hiking in from a neighboring bay. Tired? I asked with an inflection that said, I really hope you aren't. Want to go find some whales? He grinned. Just let me get a Coke and vamos. Juan and I tugged on wetsuits and boots and climbed into a Zodiac. He had been collecting loose skin for a researcher doing a DNA study, and then going into the water to photograph the heads of the whales in order to identify them, and I hoped to join them. We searched for an hour but found none in the mood to be approached. Finally, we headed back toward camp, and coming around a bend, discovered a whale named Fang and her calf playing. We cut the motor about 200 yards from the whales. Juan and I slipped over the side of the Zodiac and began to swim toward them, approaching as quietly as possible so that they wouldn't construe any of our movements as aggressive. In a few minutes, we were only yards from the mother's head. Looking down, I saw the 3-month-old baby beside her, the stony markings on its nose bright in the murky water. Slowly, Juan and I swam all the way around them, getting closer and closer. A long wound on Fang's flank looked red and angry from where the birds had been picking. When her large tail lifted out of the water, its beauty stunned me for a moment, and then I yanked Juan's hand to draw his attention, and we pulled back. At 50 feet long, weighing about 50 tons, all she would have needed to do was hit us with a flipper to crush us, or swat us with her tail to kill us instantly. But she was moving her tail gently, slowly, completely without malice. It would be as if a human being, walking across a meadow, had come upon a strange new animal. Our instinct wouldn't be to kill it, but to get closer and have a look, maybe even touch it. Right whales are grazers, so they have baleen plates, not teeth, and I knew we weren't lunch. She swung her head around so that her mouth was within 2 feet of me, then turned her head on edge to reveal a large white patch, and under that, an eye shaped much like a human eye. And she looked directly back at me as we hung in the water, studying each other. I wish you well, I thought, applying all the weight of my concentration, just in case it was possible for her to sense my mood. I did not imagine she could decipher the words, but many animals can sense fear in humans. Maybe they can also sense other emotions. Her dark plum-like eye fixed me, and we stared deeply at one another for some time. The curve of her mouth gave her a Mona Lisa smile, but that was just a felicity of her anatomy. The only emotion that I sensed was her curiosity. That shone through her watchfulness, her repeated turning toward us, her extreme passivity, her caution with her flippers and tail. Apparently, she was doing what we were, swimming close to a strange, fascinating life form, taking care not to frighten or hurt it. Perhaps seeing us slip over the side of the Zodiac, she thought it had given birth, and we were its young. In that case, she might have been thinking how little we resembled our parent. Or maybe she understood only too well that we were intelligent beasts who live in this strange, dangerous world of the land, where whales can get stranded, lose their bearings and equilibrium, and die. Perhaps she knew somehow that we live in that desert beyond the waves from which whales rarely return, a kingdom we rule where we thrive. A whale's glimpse of us is almost as rare as our glimpse of a whale. They have probably never seen us mating. They have rarely, if at all, seen us feeding. They have never seen us give birth, suckle our young, die of old age. They have never observed our society, our normal habits. They would not know how to tell our sex since we hide our reproductive organs. They would find it especially hard to distinguish between a clothed, short-haired, clean-shaven man and a clothed, short-haired woman. When Fang had first seen us in the Zodiac, we were wearing large, smoked plastic sunglass eyes. Now, we had smaller eyes, shaped like hers, but 2 on the front of the head, like a seal, not an eye on either side, like a fish or a whale. In the water, our eyes were encased in a glass jar, the snorkeling mask. Our mouths stretched around a rubber tube, and our feet were flippers. Instead of diving like marine mammals, we floated on the surface. Human beings possess such immense powers that few animals cause us to feel truly humble. A whale does, swimming beside you, big as a reclining building, its eye carefully just watching you. Suddenly, Juan pulled me back a few feet, and turning, I saw the calf swimming round to our side, though it was still staying close to its mother. Big as an elephant, it looked like a baby nonetheless. Only a few months old, it was a frisky pup, and it was rampantly curious. It swam right up, turned one eye at us, took a good look, then wheeled its head around to look at us with the other eye, just in case we had changed. When it turned, it swung its mouth right up to my chest, and automatically I reached out to touch it, but Juan pulled my hand back quickly. I looked at him and nodded. A touch could have startled the baby, which might not have known its own strength yet. In a reflex, its flipper or tail could have swatted us. It might not have known that if humans are held underwater by a playful flipper, say, they can drown. Its flippers hung in the water by its side, and its small nose markings looked like a crop of field stones. Swimming forward, it fanned its tail, and the water suddenly felt chillier as it stirred up cold from the bottom. The mother was swimming forward to keep up with it, and we followed, hanging quietly in the water, trying to breathe slowly and kick our flippers as little as possible. Curving back around, Fang turned on her side so that she could see us, and she waited as we swam up close again. Below me, her flipper hovered large as a freight elevator. Tilting it very gently in place, she appeared to be sculling. Her tail, too, was barely moving. It was as if she was treading water. Each time she and the baby blew, a fine mist sprayed into the air, accompanied by a whoomping sound as of a pedal organ. Well, we didn't have their insulation of blubber to warm us in such frigid waters, and growing cold at last after an hour of traveling along the bay with them, we began to swim back toward the beach. To save energy, we rolled onto our backs and we kicked with our fins. When we were a few hundred yards away from her, Fang put her head up in what's called a spy hop. Then she dove, rolled, lifted a flipper high into the air like a black rubber sail, and waved it back and forth. The calf did the same. Juan and I laughed. They were not waving at us, only rolling and playing now that we were out of the way. But it was so human a gesture that we automatically waved our arms overhead in reply. Then we turned back onto our faces again. Spears of sunlight cut through the thick green water and disappeared into the depths. A bottom soon revealed itself as tawny brown, about 30 feet below us, and then the sand grew visible, along with occasional shells, and then the riot of shells near shore, and finally the pebbles of the shallows. Taking off our fins, we stepped from one liquid realm to another, from the whale road, as the Anglo-Saxons called the ocean, back onto the land of humans. Well, finally, I'm going to read a little something about a neighbor of ours, all of ours. It's something fanciful about owls. I love owls, and along with Jerry Skinner, who is doing the PowerPoint for me, thank you so much, Dr. Skinner, I've had the privilege of helping Dr. John Confer tag saw-whet owls by worldwide proclamation, the cutest of all owls. And I have a real crush on snowy owls. And also I had a brief personal relationship with a barred owl. What I'm going to read tonight, though, is about eastern screech owls. I find it's great fun to study the senses of different animals and try to imagine what it might be like to perceive the world the way they do. And so I invite you to try to do that if you can. I would be an owl if I could. A creature named after its sound. So I would be a howl if I could, sweet cheat of the night, who slices open the air with soft serrated wings, so silently it doesn't warn dozy prey. How far can it see? An owl could read the bottom line on an eye chart from a mile off, or hear a mouse stepping on a twig 75 feet away. Tuning and retuning, I would be an owl with ears twin radar dishes, eyes winged binoculars. A screech owl, because though baby screechers do screech, the adults make the most enchanting, soft, whinnying howl. Actually, I'm not all that good at doing this by myself. Maybe you'd like to have a try at this? All right, on 3, we're all going to whinny like a screech owl. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Nice. You sound like a parliament of owls. That's good. I'd swallow meals whole, head first, tumbling soft and furry down my throat to the fiery plant that compacts all the inedibles into a hard pellet. Then twice a day, growing bloated and queasy, I'd stretch my neck up and forward, squeeze my stomach hard, and vomit a hairy, bony nugget. Oh, I'd vomit gently, all things considered, not thrash, and shake the pellet free for 5 minutes like the other inversely constipated owls. I'd eagerly coax these dainty pukes. I'd sing of owl puke, that is what it's called, the pellets that pave my days with dense nuggets that offer home to fungi, beetles, and other tramps. Would it sound nicer if I referred to it as a fur ball? Well, I suppose so. But a little cat fur swallowed while grooming can't compare to a stony, wadded-up girdle of rodent, shrew, mole, gecko, and snake skeleton, mixed with beetle crackle and songbird wings and oily fur, as if for a jigsaw puzzle of a chimera, part mammal, part bird, part reptile, part insect, all tasty. Yes, all things considered, I would be an owl with a ukulele call, a cowl of gray feathers cupping my feathered jowls, talons sharp and strong as ice hooks, parachute wings, a demi-suit of down, and ingenue eyes, voodoo eyes. I would be possessed of the ultimate head swivel, upside down and around back and front again over the other shoulder. Hunting among oaks and cottonwoods and old shady maples, with broad wings outstretched and head tucked in tight, I'd flap hard and fast, rarely gliding or hovering, while listening and watching for scuffling prey in the leaf litter and lawns. I'd sing duets with my mate during the day and be calmed by a male chorus at night, a parliament of owls. What a panoply of songs and calls. There is the territorial flute and glass bell tune, This Is My Land, the chortling duet of food bringing, the descending whinnies of courtship, the Here Comes the Sun and Night is Falling hoots, the reassuring I'm bringing food home hoot, the happy pottering around the nest hum, the scratchy alarm call, the faint but strident begging calls of the young, the explosive get off my land barks uttered in flight, the throaty trills while gabbing with a mate, the defensive hoots and harangues at nest invaders, and the billboard loud advertising song, Look No Further, I'm One Hell of an Owl. When frightened, I blend in with tree trunk or foliage. Isn't that an extraordinary picture? Unbelievable. Yeah. Stretching my frame long, closing my eyes to slits, tightening my feathers, and standing still as old bark. In winter, I'd gobble hot meals of warm-blooded prey, and in summer, cool, crisp lizards, snakes, and bugs. And it goes without saying that I would marry for life, living in the suburbs and devouring the rat race. I would be an owl with wide feather skirts to curtsy with when courted by bowing suitors, Oh, the formal dances of courtship, ceremonial and piquantly oriental. First, a springtime male calls, robust as all get out, and I reply. We flirt like this several times. Then I see him flying in, watch him perch nearby, and begin head bobbing and bowing deeply, repeatedly, now and then winking one eye. Ignore him, and he just chases harder. Accept, and the bill kissing and mutual preening begins, with the preened one uttering soft whimperings of delight, both fine-feathered friends, amused and enthused. Yes, all things considered, I would be an owl, with owl-bright eyes, creature comforts, and wide wings with down fur below to wrap my chicks in owl love. Thank you. Thank you so much.